Hello, everyone. You're listening to The Right Side of Gaming. Today, we're talking about the backlash against the most recent Secret Lair by Wizards of the Coast, Secret Lair Extra Life 2021. Now, if you're not aware, Secret Lairs are these sort of premium products put out by Wizards of the Coast. They're not something that you have to or need to buy. It's usually reprints of existing cards with different or unique art to them. A lot of times they're based around a theme, and some of them are aimed at charities. In this case, this is one of the charitable ones. If you're not familiar with it, Extra Life is a gaming oriented charity that supports children's hospitals. In this case, when you buy one of these secret layers, half the money is going to go to Extra Life. And in particular, these donations are going to the Autism Center at Seattle Children's Hospital. I think it's really cute what they did. They let the kids draw on these sort of oversized Magic the Gathering cards, and they got to keep both the oversized cards, and I think they get the actual like little cards as well. But the Secret Lair will have some sort of staple cards with both the children's art on it, and then an actual professional artist went in and made like actual art out of what the kids drew. And you can kind of see some examples here. Like I particularly like Mole Drifter because that just came out absolutely adorable. They have some colossal behemoths and then some metalwork colossus, and you got to admit that's a little cute bunny or whatever that's supposed to be. They even used conversations with the kids to write the flavor text. They came up with "Be you, be free, live happily." It loves to eat all things crispy, crunchy, and cheddar flavored, which I don't blame them. And I've come to save the world. And these are just such cute little cards. And you can see the actual kids with their cards. Now I'm going to leave these pictures up. In fact, I actually have a picture of all three of them together that I edited. Because I really want you to understand who is being hurt by this one. Okay? So this sounds like something a lot of people would want to support. You're helping children, in this case, particularly autistic children, and getting some really cute magic cards out of the process. However, there's been a lot of backlash online because, among other things, the hospital engages in something called applied behavioral analysis. If you're not familiar, this comes from a Norwegian psychologist, Ole Ivar Lavas. He set up a clinic at UCLA in the 1960s and did some studies through the 1970s and I think 1980s, 1990s. But they're objecting to some of those earlier studies. So what they would do is they would try to teach the kids, how to respond when they're listening, how to make eye contact, how to improve some of their motor skills, how to improve some of their language abilities, etc. And they used rewards and punishments. You're, have grown up in, I guess, most homes, that probably sounds pretty normal to you. If I misbehaved growing up, I got a timeout or I lost TV privileges, things like that. But they're objecting to specific punishments that they did. There were electric shocks and slaps, and they make it sound like that's the case for everything that they did. First, back then, and that it still happens now. Now, to be clear, that is not appropriate behavior. It's not an appropriate way to treat a child. But they did it specifically for aggressive and self-injurious behavior. Like if the kid was hurting themselves or someone else, that's when that came into play. Otherwise, they were just reprimanded. And to be clear, the American Psychological Association has strict rules nowadays about what type of behavior is appropriate in treatments, studies, experiments, and the like. I know there were some issues with that in the past for a lot of things, and they've really cracked down on that. In addition, the federal government has also banned the use of, the electric shock devices, even for behavior that might hurt the child or somebody else. So I think on that basis, that this is something where they're physically abusing the child with electric shocks or hitting them, I don't think that one really stands up. And that was a big part of some of the objections. As far as the actual ABA itself, outside of that, the opposition seems to be that it's forcing the kids to behave, quote, normally, that they want them to behave in sort of this narrow manner, whereas the people opposed to the ABA think that there should be more social acceptance of autism, and they want the child to be able to grow into an autistic adult who is happy, healthy, and all of that. Problem is, at least in my opinion, just because your behavior is acceptable or becomes acceptable doesn't mean that you aren't still facing those struggles, that you aren't still in need of certain coping mechanisms or need to learn how to engage with other people. Okay? Because first off, even they admit that there's harmful traits associated with autism, like, harming yourself, that need to be stopped. And they also, I think, are skipping over that to be a happy, healthy adult, you need to be able to communicate and interact with other people. And I say this as someone who has their own issues, who has gone through therapy and all sorts of things on that end. So I want to be very clear. These people are not necessarily speaking for all autistic people. And I think there's other people that have similar issues that have come out and said, I don't agree with you. I'm not going to list what all I've had to deal with personally, but suffice to say, I feel pretty firm that not everyone's going to agree with them. Now, to be clear, while it may not necessarily be for everybody or be the best option in every case, the American Academy of Pediatrics has shown that this ABA therapy can be effective, and there's been more reviews saying, yeah, it can be effective. Maybe not in every case, but this is an effective treatment option. I think a lot of this goes to sort of some underlying issues that we see a lot. First, there's this idea that everyone needs to cater to you and how you're different, rather than you working on and improving yourself. Okay, so even if people accepted my quirks and my issues, I would still have trouble communicating with people directly. I would still have trouble, recognizing faces. I would still have trouble understanding people's emotions or intent behind things. Okay, so that's stuff that I would need to learn how to deal with, and it shouldn't just be that they have to accept and cater to me. I need to learn how to do things for myself as well. And I think that's something that we see as sort of a repeating problem on the left. It's not just autism, but just in general, anytime that they want to claim that they're a marginalized class or whatever, there's this idea that that means everyone else has to change what they're doing and cater to you without you having to do anything to work and improve on yourself. And I think that's a horrible way to go about it. First off, not everyone's going to accommodate you because, well, some people are going to be good about that, some people won't. You have no control over that. And second, I think that shifts all responsibility onto other people and completely ignores the fact that we have to be responsible for ourselves. We also see a lot of sort of this online clout chasing, where as soon as someone has said something is bad, everyone else has to sort of pile on and say, yes, this is bad. I too want views, likes, retweets, whatever. And I think that's not necessarily a good way to go. I get that that happens. I get that there's probably a lot of people that actually do feel like there's issues here. And to be fair, I think there is room to, have some criticism for, various psychological therapies, or really room for criticism in general. I know with anything scientific, there's going to be studies that try to prove that maybe this isn't good, or maybe it's not the best option and we should explore other options. I think that's great. I think there should be some scientific rigor involved. And I realize that not everyone is going to have good experiences with some of this stuff. You do get bad people in pretty much every profession. It is possible that someone was, in fact, abused when they shouldn't have been. And I think that's something that we have to address. But I think there's also a lot of people who I think are just sort of saying, okay, everyone else seems to be against this. I should be too. Especially when it's, other people are getting attention for it. I think that's unhealthy. I've also seen them taking issue with actual ABA therapists and psychologists that are responding. You know, we we have people that for the past year or two have been saying trust the science. And when people come in and start talking about the science, people that are qualified to talk about the science, they say, "Well, you're not autistic, so your opinion doesn't matter." I'm going to disagree there. I know that I don't necessarily know all the intricacies behind every psychological therapy out there or why they choose one therapy over another. I absolutely believe that those people are better qualified to talk about it, even if I've been through, some type of therapy. I know that I'm not going to be the expert on it. I can talk about my own experiences, but I can't, definitively say this is why they did it. This is what their expected result was. This is why they chose it over something else. Like that's not something I'm qualified to do. I think one, it's a little hypocritical given the past year or two to say that we can't listen to them in a debate. And I also think it doesn't really do us any good because you do need to see both sides. And to be fair, some of these people are going to be pretty biased. It's either I'm getting, internet clout for calling you out and saying bad things about you, or it's I had a bad experience, so clearly this is bad for everybody. I think both of those are wrong. I think there's also some bigger issues at play. In the past few years, we've seen a lot of people trying to sort of erode parental rights in terms of education and medical choices. We're still seeing some of that now. We're having a lot of issues with people, teaching kids to be racist in our schools, or trying to say you have to take this particular injection, or you can't stop your child from taking this particular therapy. And I think this kind of broaches in on that because this type of ABA therapy can be effective for a lot of people. And to say that, we have to outlaw it, I mean, that's taking the choice away from the parents. And I get that we're moving a little away from the actual card game at issue here and more sort of the discourse around therapy in general. But I think that's still, an important topic to address, especially because they're trying to, again, deny money for therapy for these kids that are struggling. I mean, they're the ones that are getting hurt in all of this. Like, oh, don't. No, I'll be fair. Some of them are saying, don't give these people your money, and others are saying, well, it's up to you. You make the choice, but we're at least putting it out that we think it's bad. And I can at least appreciate that. But I think a lot of them are either accepting or objecting to charities or causes for the wrong reasons. For example, the big one that a lot of people in the Magic the Gathering side, at least, seem to really like. I think maybe the D&D side as well. But a lot of the Wizard of the Coast people, at least, really like an organization called Trans Lifeline, which, if you're not aware, I think they were really playing up the sort of anti-police sentiment from the past year or so. And their big thing is that in the event of an emergency, you don't call 911. You're arguing that if you call the police, they're more likely to be hurt than helped. And if you call, medical services, they're, again, more likely to be hurt than helped. And they're also a little anti-family. I think they've taken that part off their website. But the idea that, you're against families is just ludicrous. Um, and I know a lot of people have made sort of comparisons to socialists and Marxism in that regard, and I'm not terribly inclined to disagree. But the idea that, just because someone is trans, they shouldn't be allowed access to emergency services is ridiculous to me. Because I'm thinking, if I want to get rid of someone or if I don't like someone, that's what I would do. I would be saying, hey, you don't get police protection or police assistance. You don't get emergency medical services. Like, I feel like denying those services to people is more transphobic than anything. And I don't necessarily agree with some of the studies that they've cited. But at the end of the day, like that's what I would do. Like whether or not you agree with some of the politics, because I know there's some crazy people out there pushing a lot of things related to gender and sex. But there's a lot of sane ones too. But regardless of their beliefs, they have the same rights as the rest of us, and they deserve that help when they need it. And I think it's just absolutely horrible to encourage people to deny them those services. But that's a major charity that these people are supporting. I feel like a lot of who they support or don't support is more about optics. It's more about that, anti-police sentiment because that's what was big in the last year or so. Or it's, I found a way to make this look bad and that benefits me. Like I don't think that people are supporting or objecting to these organizations for the right reasons. Now, I'm not saying you have to go out and absolutely buy one of these secret layers or that you need to make a donation to the Autism Center. I'm not saying that. Again, it's your money. You're free to spend it however you like. I'm also not saying that ABA is necessarily the best or most effective therapy. I'm not qualified to say that. I honestly don't know either. But I don't think that we should necessarily be condemning something for behavior that no longer exists. It's not only not sanctioned by the American Psychological Association, it's been federally criminalized. And at the end of the day, when you're choosing not to give donations for reasons that I don't think really apply, it's these children that are getting hurt. It's like, hey, we were supposed to get money for our hospital because of this program that we agreed to do, and now people are throwing a fit and trying to prevent people from donating, and I think that's absolutely horrible. Now, if it was something where they proved, yeah, we are currently engaged in illegal electric shock therapy, like I can understand being upset and not wanting to support that, but I think trying to take it out on these kids to gain clout is just absolutely horrible. And that's all I really wanted to say for today. Thank you guys so much for listening, especially since I probably ranted a little bit. If you want to leave a like, comment, subscribe, that'd be great, especially if you maybe have some more insight on, the ABA or some of these organizations that they're talking about, really anything. Please go right ahead. And if not, that's okay too. I understand. Either way, I hope you have an awesome day, and I will catch you next time.